Francis Fukuyama, Liberalism and Its Discontents. Step into the world of Liberalism and Its Discontents by Francis Fukuyama, a book that sheds light on the decline of liberalism and the rise of illiberal populism in recent times. The book explores how the core tenets of liberalism, individual rights, economic freedoms, and personal autonomy, have been stretched to extremes, resulting in its vulnerability and glaring inequalities. It examines the transformation of liberalism into neoliberal politics and its identity-based alternatives that have strayed away from foundational principles. Join us as we delve into this timely analysis and understand why liberalism is in retreat, and how we can chart a course towards building a more robust and inclusive future.
The Retreat of Liberalism. Liberalism is a democratic government that prioritizes individual rights and values property rights and autonomy. Liberalism has been the dominant form of government in Europe, North America, and parts of Asia since World War II. However, authoritarian leaders in countries like Hungary, Poland, Brazil, Turkey, and the US have been assaulting liberal institutions. Trump, for example, seeks to overturn the legitimate results of the 2020 US presidential election. Despite the strides made in civil liberties expansion from the mid-1970s to the early 2000s, political rights have been in retreat for over a decade. The attack on liberal structures threatens individual liberties and economic prosperity, which were largely associated with liberalism. From liberalism to neoliberalism. The book explores how the free market ethos of neoliberalism emerged from liberalism's framework for property rights and economic growth. Economists who pioneered neoliberalism claim that only markets can efficiently allocate scarce resources and that government has no role in economic life. This idea gained popularity through political leaders such as Reagan and Thatcher, even continued by Clinton and Blair. However, the 2008 financial crisis revealed the detrimental effects of neoliberalism and the necessity of state oversight and regulation for free markets to thrive. The fact that markets work best with the state's oversight and robust legal systems has been ignored. The book indicates that neoliberalism's hostility to government is simply irrational, as free markets without regulation can devolve into feeding frenzies for oligarchs. The neoliberal ideology that was prescribed as a crucial element of economic development ultimately turned into a destabilizing economic force. The book indicates that the global economy was saved only by huge injections of financial support from liberal democracies' central banks and treasuries, the very things that neoliberalism despised. Reassessing private property rights and antitrust laws. Private property rights have long been a fundamental tenet of liberalism, but the neoliberal movement took this concept too far. While authoritarian regimes such as the Soviet Union, Cuba, and Venezuela suffered due to their disregard for private property rights, the United States faced a different struggle. The embrace of free market philosophy and weakened antitrust laws has led to a commercial monoculture dominated by large corporations like Walmart, Amazon, and Starbucks at the expense of small independent retailers. In contrast, liberal nations like France and Japan have preserved local businesses through their resistance to this form of commerce. The weakening of antitrust enforcement was due to a shift toward prioritizing consumer welfare, but a new argument suggests that concentrated corporate power has actually led to rising consumer prices. It is time to reassess the balance between economic efficiency and social values, and reconsider the role of antitrust laws in promoting fair competition. The repercussions of neoliberalism and liberalism. Neoliberalism's extreme individualism results in inequality, while liberalism's identity politics creates group rights that undermine liberalism's fundamental principles. The concept of personal freedom, integral to liberalism, is weakened as people seek self-actualization through alternative means. This trend towards individualism has resulted in a decline of public spirit, which is essential in a flourishing liberal democracy. The rise of identity politics. Identity politics is a way for disadvantaged communities to push liberal democracies to deliver on their promises of equal rights. This concept has its roots in deeply entrenched discrimination against Black Americans, as the United States remained a racially unequal society even after the Civil War. Women and LGBTQ+ groups also embraced identity politics to fight for their rights. However, this relentless push has led to dubious concepts related to gender and sexuality, as seen in critical race theory. While right-wing critics have overreacted, they are right to hold critique of liberalism that endorses controversial ideas and policies. Liberalism needs to avoid the pitfalls of stretching logical limits of identity politics as they have for deregulation and pro-market policies in the past. The pressure of identity-based groups has been essential in granting equal rights to all, but it is time for the liberals to rein in their approach to identity politics before it jeopardizes liberal democracy. Threats to freedom of speech. Liberal democracies maintain their stance on freedom of speech as a distinguishing factor from authoritarian governments like China and Russia. However, private control of expression challenges this stance. Strongmen in different countries, such as Russia, Turkey, and Italy, have utilized traditional media to build their power and convey their messages. The internet further complicates the situation as the sheer amount of material online propagates poor-quality information that can potentially spread globally and create a credibility gap. The Enlightenment concept of humans as logical creatures, who can objectively process information to reach reasonable conclusions, is challenged by a social psychology theory stating that they filter news through their personal biases and worldviews. The rise of social media worsens this situation, as inaccurate content spreads more readily than the truth. In essence, the threat to freedom of speech is not limited to government censorship but also extends to private influence and the Internet's vast realm. The necessities for a thriving liberal society. In a gridlocked U.S. society, a thriving liberal democracy requires a re-establishment of trust in government and finding the right balance between federalism and basic constitutional rights. The size of government is not the issue, but rather the quality of governance. Progressives and conservatives both have mistrust towards government due to shadowy influences and past abuses by agencies like the CIA. However, the state plays a crucial role in liberal democracies. Federalism involves pushing decisions down to the lowest appropriate level of government while upkeeping fundamental rights defended by the national government. In the 19th century, states' rights were used to defend human enslavement and Jim Crow laws, but in a liberal society, the national government must stay out of municipal minutiae while maintaining such rights. Protecting free speech in liberal democracies. Liberal democracies should prioritize individual rights over collective rights, protect free speech, and dial back an overemphasis on individual autonomy. This is the main message of the book. The author emphasizes that while regulating speech is necessary in some cases, there is a risk of overstepping boundaries. Moreover, the author argues that powerful private entities can infringe on free speech. The book suggests that social policies should aim to equalize outcomes across society, but not at the cost of individual rights. It is important to focus on fluid categories like class instead of fixed ones like race or ethnicity. Additionally, the author highlights that personal freedom is an important hallmark of liberalism, but it should not be the ultimate goal of humanity. The book suggests that liberalism should acknowledge that some individuals prefer to give up some autonomy to live within cultural or religious frameworks. Overall, the book makes a compelling case for protecting free speech and individual rights in liberal democracies.
In conclusion, Liberalism and Its Discontents provides a compelling analysis of the complexities that have arisen in the fabric of liberalism. It identifies the threats posed by divisions within liberal societies, such as neoliberal policies resulting in intensified income inequality and the rise of identity politics. Fukuyama advocates for re-establishing trust in the role of government, balancing federalism and constitutional rights, protecting freedom of speech, prioritizing individual rights over collective ones, and acknowledging the role of community and belonging in fostering a thriving liberal democracy. It is through grappling with these issues and navigating the impediments with focus and determination that the liberal world can regain its vitality and secure its future.